Okay, I'll start now. Okay. Today, uh, I'll start with a, slightly different topic than yesterday because I want to show the calculation of the uh, simple circuit design. This is I'm planning to do one sample calculation for the all of you so that we understand this circuit design in a most effective way. So I'll be sharing one sample calculation uh, which is uh, which is taken from some resources. So this is a sample calculation to make one circuit responsible for design of a cylinder which is acting upon one load, and that cylinder and pump uh, has to move one constant load at a constant velocity as per the problem. So I'm trying to read out the problem here. There is a one cylinder, one pump, and there is a constant load applied to the cylinder, and we have to move the constant load at a constant velocity in the circuit. So we require to design size. What we mean to say design, that means we have to size the cylinder, size the connectors, tubings, size the perhaps valves can be selected. We require to size the pump and any other joints, elbows, and other things. So there is some assumption we require to do here. Uh, the coefficient K is taken from the standard catalog that's responsible for the pressure loss across the wall. That K is supposed to be 5. That is from data book. So for the delivery pipe, there are say caps and elbows there at the cap end. So we assume there are two elbows there, and we assume some length, suitable length for the inlet side from pump to cylinder inlet. They assume some length, say 3 meter, and even the discharge side we assume a length of 3 meter. We assume that load is constant as 2000 Newton here. We just assume for the sake of simplicity. And it's given data given as a velocity of the load is 0.5 meters per second. That means cylinder has to push the load at a constant velocity of 0.5 meters per second. This assume you can have different data. So we shall have a look at the how to calculate the cylinder sizing, how to do the tube sizing, how to size the pump, etc. To calculate this, let us see. First, we would like to select the cylinder and a pump for this application. So we have put down this data in a systematic way. We have shown a cylinder here with a PA as a connection to the port side, PB is connection to the rod end. There is a load is represented by a force F acting in opposite direction, and the velocity V actuated by the cylinder will do movement at a velocity V. So we write the equation of the statics, say balance equation on the free body diagram of the cylinder. So pressure on acting on the piston is PA's pressure at A point pi by 4 d square, that means cylinder area square, minus the pressure on the B side, that means on the rod end side there is a pressure PB which is acting on the other side, that means pi by 4 d square into cylinder area minus rod area. So that is equal to load acting on the rod end. So we write the first equation of statics or mechanics. So load balance is taken. Now, for the sake of simplicity, let us assume rod end. The diameter of the rod is equal to cylinder diameter by 2 as the initial value. This could be slightly different, but we let us assume for the sake of simplicity. So we assume that rod diameter is half the size of the cylinder diameter. So now there is a direction control valve here. This direction control valve is named as DCV. So we just write down the points, uh, how the pressure changes from one point to another point. Let us see. The starting point is at the pump is PP, that is a pump pressure. Then it goes to the cylinder cap end PA. Then it goes to the PB rod end of the cylinder. Then it goes to the tank. So we have just named the pressure point that at PP pressure point at the pump outlet PA, PB, and P tank. These are the pressures. So we'll be doing some mathematics with respect to this, all the pressure point. As the piston moves, we know that discharge from the rod end B, QB, is less than QA because of the area less of on the rod end side. This because the cylinder area minus rod area is the actual area of the rod end side. So that area is known as QB here, kept as name QB. QA is the area on the piston side. That means the cap end side. So QB is less than QA. That is known. Let us write down the equation now. QA is equal to area of cap into velocity of the piston. Similarly, QB is equal to area of cap minus, here there is some typing mistake, area of cap minus area of rod into velocity. So whenever there is some spelling mistake or some ambiguity, I have written with the red font letters. So make it slightly easier to understand. So there is a area typing error here. So area of cap minus area of rod into velocity is the QB. Now, since there will be some loss between point B to T, that means at B point to the tank side, flow will be less. So there will be pressure loss between P to A will be slightly more than the B to T. So now next slide. So this point you are understood. We have just started the analysis for the cylinder. Now with a cylinder rod end with a symmetrical direction control valve, there will be small Q and there will be small delta P on the exit side. But just now we have just kept it, we have just shown without any exit side tubing. Directly we have connected B part to the tank port. This is for just for simplicity. We'll add that later. So in this case now, with that assumption, what we say, load, pressure difference due to load, that means the pressure difference across this cylinder, that is load, PA minus PB. So driving pressure is PA and the outside pressure at the end of the rod end is PB. So load takes up the some pressure difference. P load is PA minus PB. So this spreads out. But now let us see how the pressure spread out from PP to PT. So we'll work out how we are monitoring all the pressure points and the spread of the pressures. So this is just to make sure that we are taking care of all the pressures at different points. So let us select now diameter of cylinder to push the F load at a steady speed. For that, we require to assume PA. We require to take some value of PA. Let us assume some pressure loss here. That means loss between PP to PA. Assume some temporary pressure loss, and then we calculate and select the pump based on that. Say arbitrarily, it is assumed that PA is equal to 0.7 times P pump. That means pressure at point A is 70% of the pressure at the pump. This is also, of course, assumption. You can assume some value, 25% loss, 30% loss, depending on your judgment. This comes after some judgment. So this is a tentative value we can change later on. So this gives us the margin for the pressure loss between PA to PP to PA. And so the margin to have PA should be adequate such that it should be able to push the load. That means PA should be such that it should push the load. Now let us say PP, we assume here there are a lot of assumptions here. PP is equal to 70 bar. This is no, that means 70 bar is just taken hypothetically. You can assume 100 bar, 120 bar, depending on your experience. So probably here author has selected some hypothetical value 70 bar. So we say PP is 70 bar. So PA will be 0.7 into 70 bar, 49 bar. So we assume that PA is equal to 49 bar. Now we'll work out some mechanics here to solve this design. So before solving this equation, let us look at the problems now. Here we have a rod end of the cylinder directly connected to tank. So the pressure at the rod end is almost zero. Here in the beginning, we assume this is PB is equal to PT. So there is no load required to be driven at the PB to PT. So this is for simplification. Later on, we can add that value. So now we write the equation PA into area of cylinder is equal to F load. That means we know load, we know PA. We want to calculate area of cylinder. So now with the assumption load is known 2000 Newton, then the pressure PA is, we have hypothetically assumed. So area of cylinder is calculated. So we calculate rod cylinder diameter. Now we know the equation, area of cylinder is pi by 4 d square is equal to F load upon PA. So you substitute the value of pressures and PA value. After substituting value, convert into correct units, and we get a diameter of cylinder as 22.8 millimeter. This is just a first guess. It is not the perfect value, but this is to start with. We get some value of the cylinder size. That means cylinder diameter is 22.8. So this is not now a standard value. So we pick up a standard value, say, let us say 25 mm. So this could be a standard available nearest size of the cylinder. With this cylinder, we calculate the area of cylinder. So that is this 490.9 mm square with this area. So now we calculate the required pressure because we know the load, we know the area of the cylinder with the new assumed of cylinder area. So we calculate that what is the pressure required here is instead of 49, we say it is a 40.74. So we now worked out PA based on the cylinder dia. Now let us go to calculation of further flow rate. We want to calculate flow rate. Now we know load is known. It is velocity is known. Cylinder piston diameter is known. So we can calculate at what speed the piston is sweeping the volume. So that is equal to area of cylinder into velocity of the load is nothing but the fluid entering at the A end. That means QA. So QA is nothing but velocity of load into area of cylinder. So we calculate that as a, we know that both values, we know area of cylinder, we know the load, uh, velocity of load 0.5 meters per second. We calculate, say, in proper units, we comes to 14.73 liters per minute. So we say here we require 14.73 liters per minute as a flow at A. Next slide now. The next slide. So now with this Q, we size the conduit, that means conducting flow conducting elements. So there are, for conduction of the flow, there are two criteria here. What is the criteria? First criteria is Reynolds number should be less than 2000. In the fluid mechanics, we have seen if the Reynolds number is less than 2000, the flow is laminar. And when the flow is laminar, the friction coefficient is very, very low as compared to turbulent flow. So, so the flow, we keep it as a laminar flow. And the second, the criteria for the velocity is Vmax. The conduit velocity is supposed to be less than 6.1 meters per second. This is also from some data, design data. So from both we can calculate the conduit diameter. So let us use one first criteria. Reynolds number is so and so. That means velocity into diameter of conduit divided by viscosity nu. That means kinematic viscosity. We know the Q. You know Q is equal to area of conductor into velocity. So area of, so velocity in the conduit will be 4q upon pi into d conduit square. So now with this we equate velocity with respect to calculation from NR. So we know the NR also, Reynolds number. So NR is known in terms of the velocity, conduit diameter into velocity. So equate that with respect to equation from here. So NR is put in terms of the parameters 4 into Q into divided by pi into d conduit square into d conduit upon nu. So that gives you equation for the Reynolds number. So we get a equation for Reynolds number in terms of other parameters. So now we assume viscosity as 100 centistokes. We can assume some other value also, there is no issue. So tentatively we assume some viscosity of oil as say 100 centistoke, which is equal to 0.001 meters per meter square per second at a 40 degrees centigrade. So we put the value of viscosity here and calculate the conduit diameter, which is based on this equation. We have put this value here in the velocity 4q upon this q is 14 point some liters per minute converted into meter cube per second, and we assume Reynolds number as 2000. Say what we assumed here, Reynolds number is 2000 and put the viscosity value. So here you get a conduit diameter based on this equation. You get a so and so millimeter as a conduit. That is very, very small, 0.156 millimeter of diameter of the conduit, which is very, very, very negligible in size. So this is not reasonable. So and it gives you very high velocity. Not only this, it gives you very high velocity as 128 meters per second, which is not allowed. So we have to go to permitted velocity 6.1. Let us now work out from 6.1 so that what we are getting is correct or not. So here he has done a number check with the value of 128 meters per second. You get a 2000 Reynolds number. So there is no big deal here. Your viscosity assumed as 100. So we imagine with a higher, what he is saying, with 128 meters per second, the friction loss would be so high. So it is not advisable to do this. So let us go to size selection from some chart. So here we have some chart uh, based on the available catalog. So we can select some roughly, which is very, very conveniently available static from the data. Say 10 mm OD, wall thickness 1 mm and ID is 8 mm. So this is tentatively selected as a for the timing to just to make a guess calculation. So with this, because the previous velocity was 0.15 millimeter diameter of the conduit inside diameter, which is very impractical. We have selected slightly higher. Let us see now what it gives now with the Vmax as 6.1 meter second. So Q is equal to area of conduit into velocity. So pi by 4 d square. Here also some printing mistakes. So I'm correcting here. Area of conduit into velocity. Here is pi by 4 into diameter of conduit into Vmax. So we put Q is known. You can calculate velocity is known 6.1. You calculate the diameter of the conduit, which coming to with this velocity, it comes to about 7.157. So our assumption of say 10 mm OD and 1 mm ID, that means 8 mm tube inside diameter is okay because we have got very close to the our answer 7.17. So we almost got close to 8 mm instead of 8, which is 7.1. So we can increase that. So the velocity will be slightly reduced. So we come to the next point now. What is the next correction to be done? So now we concluded that let us use 8 mm diameter with 10 mm OD. So now what we are saying is what is the velocity? Instead of 6, we have rounded off the conduit diameter to 8 mm ID. So with that Q is known from the piston and velocity of the piston. So we calculate the velocity of the fluid in the conduit. So it gives you area into velocity is equal to Q. So conduit velocity, velocity of the fluid in the conduit is 4Q upon pi into d conduit square. So it gives you slightly less velocity instead of 6. It is 4.8 meter. So this is reasonably good. Instead of higher, it is less. So pressure loss will be less. Now we calculate the pressure drop across the pump and cylinder. Let us do that. With this velocity, we calculate from pump to cylinder inlet, what is the pressure drop? We account for two elbows, we account for 3 mm tubing, 3 meter tubing, and we account for pressure loss across the direction control valve with the coefficient K is 5. So what is the formula for head loss? F into LV square by 2GD. This is the formula for the pressure loss in the tubing. Pressure loss in the uh, uh, two elbows will be 2 times the factor K90 into V square by 2G. Then there is a direction control valve, friction loss will be K into V square by 2G, where the K is taken from data book. Even the K90 also is taken from the data book, which is given as 0.75. F, we know the friction factor in hydraulics is known as 64 upon NR. This is some formula from fluid mechanics. We say when the flow is laminar, the friction factor in the tubing will be 64 upon Reynolds number. So we calculate Reynolds number now with the new velocity here. Instead of previous velocity 6.1, the new Reynolds number will be 4.8 into diameter of conduit divided by viscosity. It comes about with 390.6 as a new Reynolds number. With this Reynolds number, you calculate the friction factor 64 upon 390. It gives you 0.16 as a friction factor. Now you substitute this value friction factor here. We calculate pressure loss from the starting from pump to the cylinder inlet. That is cumulative sum of all three. That means pipe plus bends plus across the direction control valve. So it comes to put the values here, put the velocity value, and all this value should be in appropriate unit so that the pressure loss will be in meters of fluid column. So you remember all the units should be consistent so that it gives you pressure loss HL in terms of meters of oil column. So here we get a meter loss in terms of oil column is 85 meters roughly. So we calculate that in convert into pressure drop across the point PP to PA, that pressure drop across the whole set of items, that means from the pump end to the tubing end. So that pressure drop is delta P is rho GH, or you have the formula. So put the values, specific gravity 0.9, density of the oil will be 0.9 into density of water. Gamma is assumed as 997. We can neglect. Let us assume that is okay instead of 1000, and then put the value of pressure drop across that 85. So you get a delta P in terms of rho GH is equal to 7.267 bar. That means from point PP to point PA, there is a pressure drop of 7.267. That means it will be in appropriate in Newton per meter square. That means 7.26 bar. So now we know the loss in the pump from A to the from the say pump to A, that is given here. From the previous page, there is a pressure required was at PA to drive the piston was given as 40.74. So now pump pressure will be this plus this. That means whatever required pressure at A plus pressure drop across the, all the items. So PA plus PP gives you 48.1. That means we require pump pressure to be 48.1 approximately just now. Now let us go to the next page. So what we estimated the pump pressure is based on the pressure required here plus pressure drop across this. So this is almost equal to 70% of the PP we estimated. We estimated it's a 70 bar required, but it is comes to less now. It's okay. Now we need to add the pressure drop across the exit tubing also. It is now well within the capacity of the pump, which can deliver. So pressure point at PP, pressure required was not exceeding 70 bar. So we are right on the assumption. Now let us calculate what we need to do the tubing on the other side. The pump can deliver 14.7 liters per minute at 70 bar. Now this is the original configuration. We have shown point A, point B, pump pressure P and tank pressure here. We have added tubing here. Now on the rod side, we know there is a direction control valve, there is a tubing here and tank. So rod end also we need to calculate what is the pressure drop across this point. So what we do calculate the on this side also we need to do pressure drop calculation. For that, what we do is a extra resistance the circuit will require from this resistance from this side. We need to add resistance on this side also. So that will make you PP will be accountable for the total pressure drop from inlet side as well as exit side. For the time being, he has assumed the pressure drop between PA and PP is same as PB to PT just for the sake of assumption. So we assume whatever is the pressure loss for this part is same as this part. So he is multiplying that required pressure at PA plus 2 times the pressure loss. This gives you tentative pressure as 55. So PP is 55. This is within the capacity. Now we will refine now the calculation for the exact pressure drop on the exhaust side. So you know what is the flow of oil from rod end QB, which is equal to area of cylinder minus area of rod into velocity of the load. You put the value, we have assumed some rod diameter suitable. So it gives you value of the QB, that means 1.841 10 raised to minus 4 meter cube per second. This is the QB value for the discharge side. That means area of QA was different, QB is different. QA is much more than QB. So QB we have calculated based on this formula, which is equal to area of cylinder minus area of rod into velocity, which is equal to given values pi by 4 d. This cylinder diameter is known. This we have assumed. This gives you velocity of the load is known. You calculate QB. Use that QB to calculate the exhaust size. Now we can assume, let us see, velocity of conduit is instead of using any hypothetical, use the same side. So with that value of QB, you get a velocity here in the discharge side in the conduit 3.62. So with that value, we calculate now the exact pressure drop between the point B to the tank. So you calculate the exact pressure drop from B to tank. Say, because we know the velocity in the conduit, we assume the same tubing. So here is a with that calculation, friction factor 0.1638 into uh, length upon diameter into V square by G. So this also we have assumed for the 3 meter length of the pipe. Diameter is assumed 8 inside diameter. These are for two elbows. We have assumed here also two elbows. Here there are pressure drop across even the discharge direction control valve is there. So that also we added. So we get now pressure drop across the point B to T as 46.44. These are now based on the exact values of the velocities as well as the conduit diameter. So now we have the exact value. Let us calculate B to T pressure drop in terms of the meters. In fact, of Newton per meter square or bar. So you convert 46.44 head column friction loss head in terms of uh, pressure in terms of bar, which comes to 4.08 bar. You assume that rho gh again, h into rho g, get a value of 4.08 bar. That means now pressure drop between point B to T is 4.08 bar. Now we know pressure tank is zero, tank pressure is zero, so we know tank pressure zero. So PB will be now, we assume PB equal to 4.08 because we know tank pressure is zero. So we know PB is now 4.08. We have calculated the PA. Now we write the equation now. PB, PA into pi by 4 d square uh, minus PB into pi by 4 d. So pressure, we know PA, we know pressure at B. So PA minus PA into area minus PB into area gives you friction load, that load on the system. So let us see next slide. Let us see whether it was lost or so. Yeah, this is low side now. Let us go to mode. So now, using that equation, PA into area of the cylinder minus PB into area of the rod side is equal to load. So we work out in terms of PA. You rephrase the equation such that now you get a value of PA by transferring to the other side. So we calculate PA exact value based on the known factors from the load exit side. It comes to 43.81. So now we have already calculated PP to PA. What is the loss of pressure between pump pressure to PA, that is known. So exact PP will be now 43.81 plus this. So it is almost 51.08 bar. So this way we calculated. So now we summarize that the starting pressure will be at the tank will be 0. PT is 0 bar. From tank to PB, it is the pressure drop is 4.08 bar. So PB is known. PA is now calculated just now 43.81. Pressure at the pump will be pressure at A plus pressure drop between A to P. So that is known. So that we added 7.267. So now we are able to conclude that we require pump pressure of 51.08. We require LPM of whatever given value 14 point something was delta P. Then that means our assumption is correct. That is what we are proving here, that whatever we assume, this is okay. So this way, what we are saying is we worked out how to calculate the exact size of the cylinder. What we calculated, what we then did is the exact data of the conduit size, pump pressure, LPM. So now you may be able to select the pump based on exact calculation slightly on higher side. Then discharge also, you can keep it slightly on higher side, maybe roughly 5 to 10% extra. And this way we are able to conclude that the parameters given here, we are able to satisfy. So we were able to do everything as per the required data. So I've just now indicated uh, for this data, we are able to calculate based on the given data of load and velocity. We are able to size the pump. We are able to size the tubing. We are able to size the cylinder. This is of course a trial error method. You may have some different starting point. You will get some different answer. That way you do this recalculate every time. maybe 3 to 4 times. Based on that data, you come to one conclusion, which is going to be in your availability. That means the pump pressure should be available, then the LPM also should be available. You select from the available catalog from the pump and data. So this way I have shown here how to do the rough calculation of for the any given system. The same system you can use for very elaborate system. You do this calculation for very very detailed calculation from all the discharge points, suction point, valves, tubing, fittings, then the valves for the direction control valve, relief valve, everything you do and make a table and you do systematically this calculation. So with this we I've just shown you how to calculate, design a pump and a cylinder and select. Basically, it's a selection. Only we do the calculation of the pressure drop and the flow and calculate some exact calculation of the pump here. So we conclude with some example. Just purpose of this design selection was to illustrate how in industry the detailed calculation could be done on a Excel sheet or some data sheet, and this way we proceed. So let us go to the next chapter from here. I'll complete our last topic, what we were doing yesterday, hydraulic circuit. Yesterday we were doing hydraulic circuit. We had left out because of time. Now I'm starting with the just go through this point, design of hydraulic circuit. We said when we want to design hydraulic circuit, we were saying that first you need to have a scheme. Do the performance for the performance you have one scheme, calculate the everything as per required. So study the requirement, use the system approach, design some circuit like we did calculation based on our experience and calculation. Select some pump and working pressure. This is also from some logic. Then we do calculate this what we do just now, calculation for the pressure drop. You do this calculation, work out the pressure drops across the cylinder, across the lines, and work out back pump pressure. Then calculate the power. We have already selected, say, select some oil here, which can be between 15 to 100 centistokes, which can be used. You can select based on your requirement. Then use the pressures, velocities. These are the tentative velocities. We have selected in the beginning 6.1, but here you can go to slightly lesser also. There is no issue. So using this, what we did is this velocity, the pressure drops across the various fittings could be taken from some catalog, and friction in the pipeline was taken from Reynolds formula 64 upon RE. So we did that calculation. Calculate the pressure drop. Then you can calculate the power required. Flow into delta P into divided by efficiency by some constant that will give pressure. So you calculate the work with required power for that. So this way we concluded one sample calculation. This you can continue for the required data for the next idea for your design. Now let us go to some samples calculation. Sorry, sample design which we yesterday left out. This is a drilling machine application. It shows four-way valve is used with a spring-centered design with a closed tank port. Here tank port is closed. What I'm trying to show here. Let us see what is that arrow. Here we have shown a three-position four-way direction control valve with a lever actuation, and central port the tank is closed, but P and AB are joined together. That means it is a regenerative application. Probably we'll see that. And here there is a pump and there is a pressure relief valve here. So you need to now identify yourself that is the strainer, tank, pump, connection point for the direction controller P, T, A, B. A is connected to the cap end, B is connected to the rod end, and these are the levers for manual actuation. It is a spring-centered valve. So let us see what actually it is trying to do. So here the application is drilling of a one drilling machine where we require to do some small drilling operation. The here let us go back to the slide here. if you use this left envelope, what we are trying to see, left envelope is giving some pressure and flow, but that flow will be as the pump pressure, it will not be higher. So it will be a very slow motion because the pressure, pump flow will be slightly less when it is not aided by the regenerative here. We are trying to show here regenerative flow. So what he is saying here, when we put the envelope into the center, that means we are trying to say when this is the correct center use, that means the pump is directing the flow to the A and A goes to the cap end. This flow from the B side, that when its cylinder extends, the flow from B end goes back to the uh, it goes back to the cap end, and this is called regenerative mechanism. So the pump is aided by the flow from this side, and it is pushing the cap piston toward this with a higher Q instead of only pump Q. Pump Q is added by the flow from the discharge end. That is what expressed in the next slide. So, uh, so the middle envelope will give you rapid extension. That is what he is saying. It's a regenerative mode. Rapid extension means the flow from the rod end is aiding the pump flow. The left flow is the left envelope. What he's saying, left envelope is showing against the retraction. It's just a retraction. Here there is there is only it has to come back to the original position. Now, why this actually rapid extension is required? Because when you are doing drilling, the most of the idle stroke is used for the before cutting before cutting in the drilling material. It will be simply idle stroke. There is no real work there is going on. As soon as the drill touches the load, as soon as there is drill touches the load, or it could be a punching operation. Here it could be it could be a wait. I think I have gone to the next slide. So here, it's sorry, I have gone to the next slide. In the when during you are doing the drilling operation, during the movement of the drill, till it touches the material, the motion is idle. So that's why we are doing the fast, rapid extension of cylinder. As soon as it touches, we shift back to the left center. That means as soon as what we are saying, as soon as the drill touches the material, we shift by manual operation, shift it to the left envelope. So really the high pressure application starts and low flow. So here in the center, it's a high flow, low force. There is no force, cutting force here. But in the left, it is a high force applied to the cylinder end and low speed. So this is what we are trying to do with the regenerative method. So this is regenerative circuit is used for actually it is a fast approach for the drilling operation, and later on during cutting it is a slow operation and it is a higher pressure. So you understood this high end. So similar application here. I am trying. Yesterday we were talking of some two pumps, high and low, high pressure, low flow. Similarly, low flow, high flow, low pressure. So both these are here connected here to the system. Here there is a operation of high pressure low flow pump in conjunction with the low pressure high flow pump. So here on the left side is a low flow pump with a high pressure, and on the right side is a high flow but low pressure pump. So we are trying to use the same logic here for uh, in the during the there is a, before it engages with the load, we'll fill up the with the high flow. So here the pump, what this high flow low pressure pump will deliver the volume by normal logic. That means this here there is no regenerative here. Directly we can connect left envelope here, shift it here. So the high flow pump, low pressure, it will shift the pump cylinder to the this end. As soon as it reaches here, what will happen? Immediately there is a resistance from the load side. What will happen? This resistance will make sure that now the high flow, low flow pump also comes into picture, because this pump is not able to overcome this pump pressure is being low. This low high flow low pressure pump cannot overcome this load. So this starts developing the pressure. What will happen? This pressure will be able to shift the unloading valve. There is unloading valve here. So this pressure will dump the high flow pump to the tank here. So what he is trying to do is low flow high pressure pump will actuate now this cylinder. It will start working against the load. It will remove this working of the high flow pump because of the this pressure is going giving a signal to unloading valve. It will dump the this second pump to the tank, and this will start doing the cutting of the job. So here combination of two pumps with the unloading valve is selected. Unloading valve is doing the unloading of the high flow low pressure pump with the help of high pressure signal during the end of the operation. I hope you understood this. We'll go to the, I think the same operation is explained here by in a descriptive word. Now we study one circuit using the hydraulic cylinder sequencing circuit using this diagram. So there are cylinders A and B. These cylinders identical cylinders connected via some circuit such that this is probably using, we are using two sequence valve. What they are doing here, two sequence valves are used to control the sequence of operation of two direction control valves. When the direction control valve shifted to the left envelope, now here there are two sequence valves here. When the direction control valve is shifts to the left envelope, here that means this position is active. Then the and then completely once the left cylinder completely extend, the what happens, the direction controller shifted to the right envelope. So first in the left envelope, what will happen, let us see. When the left envelope is active, the pump flow will go from here. It will go to the left end cylinder cap end. It will extend the cylinder of the left side. This flow will come back here from the rod end. It will go here. It will not go through this because it's a here there is no pilot here, so it will go back to this side through the check valve. It will go back to the check valve and it will let us see what I'm confused slightly. Let us read that. When the direction controller is shifted to left envelope, the left cylinder extends completely. Then the right cylinder extends automatically. First, the left cylinder gets actuated. The flow of this left cylinder at the output, once it's complete, then the right cylinder gets actuated. And once the right cylinder gets actuated, the return cycle also is similar. If the DCV is now shifted into the right envelope, the right cylinder retracts first fully, then the left cylinder retracts. The sequence is controlled by sequence valve. The spring center position of the DCV locks both cylinders in place. What it says, if it is in the central position, the both cylinders are locked in this position. So this assumption of sequencing is done via sequence valve. How? Let me recheck how it is done. Just give me 2 minutes. It is going here to the left envelope. It is going to the extend left cylinder. This flow is coming here. It is going to the going to the check valve. Going to the check valve, it will have. So I'm right here. This flow from the rod end is given to the this check valve. This check valve will open. This will go to this sequence valve. This sequence valve get actuated because of the pilot signal here. So that means this pilot signal gets fully connected. That means this pilot signal now this flow will be connected to the now wait a minute. This is now dumped to the this is pilot signal going here. It is going to the return cycle. So okay, this is connected here. It is going to the tank. Okay. So first cylinder is, I'll repeat the procedure. This left envelope is giving the pump flow to the cylinder A. The return fluid is going to the actuating the sequence valve. This sequence valve will dump the tank because this is now connected to the tank. So this will dump. Then what will happen? The next cycle has to take place. The sequence will be automatically, this will energize now. Once this now the point of next actuation will be as soon as the pump cylinder A completely extends, the pump the pressure in the A, this side A, is so high that it will trigger the sequence valve of the this side. That means it will actuate the sequencing cylinder of this side B side, and this pump will be connecting flow from the pump will be connected to the other rod, that means the cap end of the cylinder B. So you remember here, when the cylinder completely extend, that pump flow will not be able to complete the, it will not be able to complete overcome any extra thing. So pressure will rise because this is completely extended. This pump pressure rise will be, increase in pressure will be given signal to the sequence valve through a pilot signal here. This pilot signal will connect the this line to the pump cylinder inlet from the B side. So this will extend the cylinder to this side, and this flow will go back to the tank via return line. So first, high pressure cylinder actuates, it will increase the pressure, it will actuate the second cylinder will actuate, and it will extend fully. Same procedure in the reverse cycle. It will be in the beginning when you actuate the left cylinder here by going to the right envelope, the retraction will take place here. In the same fashion, the retraction is completed, it will actuate the cylinder BA. From B, it will go back to A. This also cylinder will retract and complete the cycle. So I think you need to study this in detail when you peacefully do it. Let us go to the next slide. So here there is a one cylinder circuit is given a automatic retraction, auto retraction mechanism. That means this cylinder will reciprocate between the rod end and cap end automatically with the help of logic here. This circuit shows it is continuous reciprocation of the hydraulic cylinder. This is using two sequence valve. Each of them senses a stroke completion by corresponding buildup of pressure. So here the sequence is controlled by automatic sequencing through the pressure buildup here, and it is sensed by the uh, sequence valve, and then it is shifts the four-way valve to the next position. So here, let us see how it works. First, the pump is, let us assume that we are shifting it to the first position through some left envelope. Let us see, this is left envelope. What will happen? The left envelope will extend the, it will go this side, it will go to the rod and it will retract. Once it retract, this side the fluid is coming back here. It will go to the, when it is complete, when the cylinder stroke is complete, what will happen? The pressure here will rise. That pressure rise will affect the this sequence valve. It will actuate the sequence valve here, and it will, what will happen? The sequence valve is actuated and it will trigger the signal from this side. So it will shift the direction controller to the other side, and it will actuate the other side of the signal circuit. That means the direction controller is getting shifted because of the pressure rise from the rod end or the cap end, depending on the sequence now. So first is signal is given from here to here because of the actuation of the direction sequence valve, and it is actuating the direction controller to the next position. So here you think carefully how it happens because of the given circuit here. It is very, it is given in the standard design data book, how the things happen here. So you need to work out, you physically imagine each operation systematically. Let us assume that first cylinder A side is operating, then from the B side it operates. It gives the signal to the sequence valve. This sequence valve in turn actuate the signal for the pilot to the direction control valve. I think then we go to next slide here. We saw this sequencing. Now let us go to the next slide. Speed control of hydraulic motor. This is being done by the pressure compensated flow control valve. That means here this design is such that pump is pumping the fluid through a direct pressure compensated flow control valve. It will drive the motor in one direction or the other direction depending on the position of the direction control valve. While it is, when the you want to do reverse operation, it will simply, the flow of the pump will be stopped, and it will be reverse operation of the pump will be corrected through the direction control valve. That means just a minute. Using the pressure compensated control valve. So here only what point here is the pressure compensated control valve. It's adjustable, can control the hydraulic motor. I think that is the only thing we remember. Next slide. So this is a hydraulic motor braking system. Here, this I think we have seen here. When there is a motor stops suddenly, the motor has to come to an halt because it will act as a pump. So in this case, uh, what we are shown here, there is one pressure relief valve. When there is a motor gets stop supply because of the central position, this will be motor becomes a pump because of the logic of inertia, and that pump has to suck the liquid from either this side or that side depending on the direction of the motor. So what is shown here is sucking the fluid from one side, and it is directing the fluid from the this side to other side using the check valve. So here suppose now it is a motor is stopped, the hydraulic motor is stopped, it acts as a pump. So pump will suck the liquid because now it is able to suck the liquid from this side. It will sum the liquid from this side, it will go to this side because of the check valve. It is allowing the sucking of the liquid. It will pump the liquid to this side, then this will go to the other side and discharge the tank. This is stop, but then it will go back to the tank via second pressure relief valve here. So using the four check valves and the pressure relief valve, it will circulate the liquid between the pump and the tank alternatively, and pump motor will come to a halt. I think that completes the my design of hydraulic circuit. Now let us go to the next. Probably we have now 30 minutes approximately. I'll take hydraulic actuators as the next topic. Hydraulic actuators. Uh, Actually, we have two more presentation, but we have a 10:30 as limit. I'll just take 2 minute break for my water. Probably we are will be studying this objective of hydraulic actuator, the classification, the various hydraulic cylinders, construction, and double acting, cushioning, all this various fine tuning we'll do, and how they are used in the circuit. The hydraulic actuators is using converting pressure energy into mechanical energy based on fluid flow. So based on that, we have a linear actuator, that means cylinder. We have rotary actuator, hydraulic motor, and we have semi-rotary actuator in some application. So this is the schematic of the actuator. So what are the classifications here? What is the single acting, double acting, telescopic, and tandem? I've shown here the single acting cylinder by cutaway view. So here there is a spring on the rod side, and this is a port, pressure port. There is only a vent port. There is no liquid connection here. So extension stroke, the only air is moving here, and the liquid is coming internally and pushing it rod. During the return stroke, the spring pushes out. As soon as the spring pushes out, liquid will go back from the same port and it will extend, retract. So double acting cylinder, the ports are connecting on the both side A and B, and both side there is a fluid here. So there is a construction here. Piston is connected with the piston seal for sealing the liquid from A to B. That means this side liquid should not go to the other side. It's sealed by piston seal. Similarly, in the rod also there is a seal. We'll see in the detailed design. This is called as a telescopic cylinder. That means there are cylinders inside one cylinder. That means the outer cylinder has a large inner cylinder. That inner cylinder has one more internal cylinder. That way, you have multiple cylinders inside one another. So once the one stroke is completed, that means the first cylinder gets fully extended. Then the next stage one cylinder will go. Stage one, stage two, stage three, stage four. All these cylinders continuously extend depending on the resistance. So it gives you the same size. You get a higher, very high stroke. This is used in a material handling design system. That means for tippers, probably you must have seen tippers. Tippers use this telescopic cylinder. Tandem cylinder is nothing but the cylinders where there is a partition, then there are two pistons. Both pistons are moving synchronously because of the design, and both ports are connected in the same fashion. These two ports, P ports are on one side, return ports are on the another side. So you give the connection P connection here as well as P connection here. Uh, so here there is a pressure connection, here there is a pressure connection, here there is a tank connection, here there is a tank connection. So here details are given. I think we can go faster because we have less time. So these are the constructional details. This process is a linear motion. Think cylinder has left a single rod at the right side. The rod is called end is called cap end. The left side is called cap end. Right side is called rod end. I'll go slightly faster because we have already covered. This is the inlet port. This is the exit port. This is allowing cylinder to extend or push the fluid from the both ends. When the cylinder retracts, the fluid pushes this. So in cylinder details, because of the unequal area, the motion from A to B is occurring. Uh, Given a flow at A, it will cause extension. Given the flow from B, it will retract. So these are the formulae. We need not do this because we have studied this in mechanics. So I'm going slightly faster. Power analysis again here. The what is power consumed in the cylinder is a pressure into velocity will give you power here. F into or instead of that value formula is F load into the velocity will give you power required by the cylinder with the assumption of friction being absent. So F load into V is nothing but uh, on this side, left side, F load into velocity is giving you cap end formula, pressure at the cap end into Q at the cap end. Similarly, if the cylinder is retracting and it is extending, pulling force is given here. So F load into velocity will give you P at the rod end into Q into rod end. So these are some construction details. Actually, this is slightly complicated, so I just wanted to highlight how complicated it looks to be. So lot of you can see internal details are very complicated, though it looks on paper very simple. Just to prevent the oil flow from internal to outside area, and also oil flow from this side of the piston to the other side of piston, and this some leakage should not occur to the cap end. These are the things. These are actually 3D view again on the same time. You can see there are a lot of seals here used for allowing free flow of rod, but the seals will protect the oil not coming out from the rod end. Similarly, seals will be here for the cap end also. That construction here you can see later. Now here there are some mounting methods. I will not go into detail, but most populars are here shown. These are most popular mounting for the cylinders. That means this is the way we use the mount the cylinder on a frame. Either it is cap end is mounted, or it's a rod end is mounted in this fashion, or it can be a trunnion mounted, or it can be head trunnion, or it's a middle trunnion this way, or this way front flank mounted. These are the various options for mounting. So cushioning, I want to show highlight important factor cushioning. When there is a piston is supposed to hit the one side of the cap, it is supposed to be mechanically hitting. Instead of hitting mechanically, what we do here through the hydraulics, we cushion the that shock using some design here. So here, as soon as it enters here, this is a flow does not go out from here, but flow is forced to go out from this side. That is shown here. When the cushion sphere enters the hole at the cap end, what happens? The fluid is forced to go through the smaller orifice. That means the pump flow from this side is blocked. It has to go through a smaller orifice. That gives you shock absorbing effect here. So that needle here, the needle is adjusted to absorb the shock as well as the control the shock from the mechanical impact. So mechanically, this does not hits the cap here, but it is through a oil, high pressure oil it is done. So pressure goes and increases at the end of the stroke. Similarly, there is a on this side of the rod end, there is also similar arrangement. This cushion sleeve is going to enter here. The flow does not go out from here like this. but flow goes from the some small nozzle here. That's what it is shown. So in the cushioning, when you use a cylinder with cushioning, you can use the velocity of 12 meters per minute instead of 8 meters per minute. Uncushioned cylinders use maximum 8 meters per minute, but cushioned one can go at a higher thing. Now I'll just go through the small designs of uh, cylinders being used effectively. I was talking about regenerative extension. Why this regenerative extension? We already saw that regenerative extension cylinder is using to fast move the cap rod piston to the outside. By that means the extension is very fast compared to the extension in the normal uh, method. Normal extension flow is only one side. That means the pump flow is here. It is occurring as a normal extension. So Q pump is going here and extending, and return is through the this side. But when you have a regenerative extension in the center, that means if you use this method, you can extend it very fast, because this flow is pump flow is aided by the flow from the cap end. It is joining here because there is no other way to go. You can imagine this yourself. Imagine a situation that this flow has no path to go. Pump is not aligned to go. So only path is it is aligned to go to the this side. That means on the cap end. So pump flow plus rod end flow is making the flow very high. So the extension is becomes very fast, and this is a normal traction. So this is the regenerative extension. I've just shown one calculation, regenerative calculation. What is it shows? When you use a regenerative calculation, the time of extension and normal time of extension. When you use a regenerative method, time of extension becomes very small compared to the normal extension. Here there is some data. Uh, Diameter of the cap end is given as 6.4 centimeter, rod end is given as 2.5, stroke is 61 centimeter, pump pressure is given some value, flow rate of the pump is given 8.71, the area of the cap end is given, area of the rod end is given, the volume of the cap end now, volume is given as this, pi by 4 d square minus rod square into the, uh, this is the volume into the stroke, that is given as the volume of the cap end. Sorry, cap end is this side. So pi by 4 d square into the stroke is the cap end volume. Next slide. The volume of the rod end is here. Pi by 4 uh, cylinder diameter square minus rod end square into the stroke. This volume is responsible for the filling of the cap end. So time required to fill the cylinder for the forward stroke using only the pump flow. Now here only we are using the pump flow. What will happen? Volume upon flow rate of the pump. So if the volume is calculated 19.1962 cm cube divided by pump flow, that is 145. So it gives you time required to extend it with only pump is 13.51 seconds. Whereas when you are filling with the regenerative method, what is supposed to do? This flow also joins, and you are filling the this side with the help of two flows, pump flow plus this flow. So the time required will be uh, now the effective volume gets reduced, because now this flow, this q is gets reduced by this q is getting added here. So total effective flow q, this minus this is only the thing which pump need to fill. So here this is 1662 to return stroke is here there is a return stroke. Sorry, I'm saying here return, for the return time is given 11.45. Okay. Now when you shift the direction controller to regen method, the volume of oil is going from the rod, cap end to the rod end. Sorry, rod end to the cap end is helping the flow. So effectively the pump has to only give smaller volume, and the effective volume is only 299 cm cube. That means this is the cap end volume minus the rod end volume. This effectively thing is required to fill up the by the pump. So the pump flow will be volume upon flow rate given here. What is 249 cm cube? So here you require only 2.062. So compared to 13 seconds, you are only required 2 seconds. That means you can save the time. That is what we are interested to show. So now next slide. So you have understood regenerative method used for saving the time and uh, fill up by using the flow from this side. So application of regenerative here, what we have shown here, there is a wooden log. This wooden log is to be cut into two pieces. With the cylinder force, 8 inches travel will take a very long time. So to cut the time short, what we do, we cut it with a regenerative method. You connect the regenerative method, allow the rod end flow to go to the cap end. So you do faster travel. As soon as it comes to this end, you again shift back to the normal method, and then you cut it. Then what will happen? You are effectively using higher force at the cutting, and during this side the pressure force is comparatively less, and on this side when you are using the completely full flow here and the rod is connected to the tank directly, so force of cutting is high. So here this application of regenerative method is to reduce the time of cutting. So faster travel, again shift back to the normal method of cutting the wood into the pieces. So this way we are shortening the time. So alternate use of this regenerative method. Uh, the second design, instead of the previous design, we had used the previous design. What we have used is a direction control valve here. My center position is regenerative method. Here I have shown you third slide. We have shown alternate design of the regenerative method using some different configuration rather than the regenerative method in the center position. So here there are two solenoid valves, two position, two way, two solenoid valves here position kept this way and this way. So they are used in some synchronized way such that it will act as a, if these two DC are not used, suppose we don't use this direction control valves, it will be a normal circuit of the extension attraction. Now we will use the manual control this position. Now use this method, use the two direction control valves. What will happen? Shift this here, shift the direction control A to the actuated solenoid valve through actuation of the solenoid. What will happen? This will occupy this position. The fluid flow from here, uh, this side, it will get blocked here on the delivery side, and but that flow is because of the shift of the uh, direction controller. It will go back to the cap end, and it is acting at a regenerative method. So here the alternative design is given by actuation of the two direction control valve. So two direction controllers have to be simultaneously actuated, A and B. So it will shift the position to the connecting rod end to the cap end, connecting it to the blocked end here. So this is the tank is blocked here, connection to the tank, and here it is connected to the rod. This is alternate design. Then we go to the special cylinder. This just for our academic interest. This is a special cylinder is known as 2:1 cylinder, where area of cap is 2 times the area of the rods. Area of the cap end is 2 times the area of the rod end of cylinder. Is and uh, use a regenerative method. Use a regenerative method for extension. What we find here, the force of extension and force of retraction is same. Also, the velocity of extension is equal to velocity of retraction. So, in this configuration, it is called as a special cylinder, just for interest of design. So now we come to the. I want you to go to this site of Paitel's video, Jim Paitel's video, and study this method. I'm just purposely leaving this here. You study this four position direction control valve. What it here there is a four positions are given. Each one has a different function. I want you to understand that. You go through the video of the Jim Paitel's video. Use this. Understand this yourself. This I'm doing as an exercise for home. I'm now coming to extract meter in extension, meter in retraction. Alternates are given here. We have covered it yesterday, but just for the sake, whenever you inlet is controlled, that is called meter in extension. Whenever uh, uh, return side is connected for the, that means meter in retraction. That means when you retraction is you want to connect the flow control valve on the retraction side. Here meter out extension, that means when it is extending, the output side is controlled via flow control valve. Here also meter out retraction, that means in the retraction this cylinder we are controlling the flow at the cap end. Why? Flow control valve. So both, all these four methods are used in the design. Now, I just given one example of meter-in extension as a speed control of hydraulic cylinder, just to show how we control the speed of the cylinder by using meter-in circuit. So here the pump flow is directed from here. It is coming to the uh, it is going to the cap rod end. So it is going back. So while going back, so let us see, when flow is going from here, it is going to the rod end. Now this cap end is connected to, so the cap end is connected to direct check valve. So the whole flow will go, instead of flow controller, it will go from here. But when you shift this manually here, the extension of the cylinder, what will happen? This flow will go back to the, no, this flow from here, it will go back to the cap end through flow control valve, and instead of check valve. Check valve is closing the flow from here to here. So it will go through flow controller, it will extend it under the action of the flow controller. So this is called as a meter-in extension, used for controlling the cylinder velocity. So, but this is not to be used for vertical position, because the vertical position, the weight of the connected to the rod of the cylinder will pull it down. Here meter out extension is used for speed control of hydraulic cylinder. So here, instead of meter in, meter out is connected. So here when the pump is connected to the cylinder cap end, the outside of the flow is connected to the flow control valve, and it is controlling the flow through flow control valve. So either use the meter in extension or meter out extension, depending on the requirement. Both are equally okay, as long as the cylinder is horizontal. This is the way we design the circuit. So you can imagine the circuit design when so many valves and so many bends and so many fittings are available. You need to do workout for each and every one. So I wanted to highlight how many connections lengths are available to work out the design. So now here I am showing here one position when meter out extension is used. So when there is a design is such that the cylinder is vertically kept up and it is over, and the load is connected to the cylinder top end and it is coming under the action of gravity, you should never use meter in extension but only use meter out extension. Because what will happen, if there is accidentally some problem with the meter in extension, this will fall under the gravity and it will damage something. So as a precaution in design, when there is a heavy load is connected in this fashion, left side of the design, it is connected in this fashion, the load is hanging on the top, you should always use a meter out extension, because meter out extension, the retraction will always occur through the flow control valve, it will not occur through a check valve. While lifting the load, it will occur through via check valve and lift. Similarly, if the load is hanging on a rod end, load is hanging on the rod end of the cylinder, never use a meter in extension but use a meter out extension. Here also the extension is being controlled by connecting the rod end flow through a flow control valve, and it is controlling through flow control valve. So extension of the rod extension, that means the motion of the cylinder, is controlled by flow control valve rather than on a freely falling. If it had been here, what would happen? If there is a free fall, it will impact directly because of the gravity. It will have an uncontrolled motion here. Similarly, if there is any situation where the load is pivoted at some point, it is supposed to likely to have effect because of the gravity. It can come very heavy on the left side or right side. Use meter out extension on both sides. That is the point we want to highlight. And this is the condition that load is connected via pivoted point. It is can fall down the left side as well as right side for any failure. So that should be avoided by meter out extension. That is what this design is showing. Sorry. So we have seen this. Now next slide is, I've just seen covering up some series and parallel circuit. So with this arrangement, how to connect the two cylinders in series? When the two cylinders are connected to series, what we should do, connection of cylinder X, output of the connection X to be given to cylinder Y, and that cylinder Y output should be connected to tank. This alignment will synchronize the motion. That means this will synchronize motion. When this will get synchronized, that means the both will be uh, can move in a synchronous fashion when the area of the same in terms of the cap end and the rod end of the cylinder. That means this area and this area are same. Then only it will be synchronized motion. And but the it may be not possible to have exact thing. So you make sure that this synchronization is done in this fashion. So series hydraulic circuit characters synchronized movement, difference in travel length, difference in speed, and pressure intensification. But the pressure difference could be there. This area being different, the pressure will be slightly different. So when the both cylinders are the same size, there could be problem because this volume is different than this volume. So this could be unsynchronized motion. The next thing is I've just shown a for this calculation. What should be the calculation for this diameter of the cylinder 2 inch and pi 8 by inch? What should be the size of the cylinder such that this flow gets accommodated without any issue? That means this flow is same as intake flow for the other cylinder. I think we did not go into this detail. And one more thing, if there are two cylinders connected in this fashion, both cylinders are connected via T connection. One cylinder has a lesser load than the other load. What will happen? The first it will go to point of connection showing here is the pump will always go to the lesser resistance area. This will lift this load first rather than this load because this resistance is less. It requires lesser pressure. So pressure on this side being lesser because load is less. So first this will completely lift. After the pressure reaches the this reaches this dead end, this will start and lifting the second load. Just indicate that how cylinders will behave in two cylinders. Now here also same thing is continued. Both sides are same, but the different loads are there. So internal pressure, though it is a pressure here is same. The pump pressure can be same. It will go and lift one side. This proves that both cylinders don't move simultaneously. This is the point now I shown. If there is a two parallel cylinders, what could be the method of connection? Series and parallel circuit. What could be the connection circuit here? Either you connect the two rod ends via common platform, or you connect the hydraulically here. Input of the first cylinder to the output of this is to connect to input of the second cylinder, and this connect to the tank, or you connect other way around. While extending, it will go flow will go from here. It will extend the rod at A, then it will start extending rod B, and this will go to the tank. But this has some disadvantage. This will may not go synchronously. What we are trying to see is a synchronous motion. What we should do physically is what I'm trying to show. Use a yoke. Yoke is a mechanical collection between these two sides. Mechanically couple them together, rods of the both cylinders. Then only it will go as a synchronous motion. This is the point I want to show. Then another application of the jack, hydraulic jack, simple design. Hydraulic jack is nothing but a method to use the lifting some heavy object with the help of small device like a jack in the garage industry. So here it is sucking the liquid from the tank. It is coming to the cylinder. When you push the pressure stroke here, it will lift the it will lift the cylinder because of Pascal's law. Force here is multiplied here by the higher area. Pressure being same here, the force will be higher. So this completes my actuators. Now I'll only cover up some small topic, which is a accumulator. I want to give highlight of accumulator. I just want to show some accumulator quickly. So this probably will be the last presentation because of the we have only say 7-8 minutes, so we can go very fast now. We have 7 minutes to go. What are the accumulator function? Accumulator is, I can tell you, it's like a flywheel in the mechanical system. Flywheel stores energy and it delivers the energy whenever the system requires. So similarly, accumulator stores some energy in the form of fluid pressure and it discharges whenever it is required. So it maintains the system pressure when several components on the when we have a several component in the system, it will maintain the pressure, activate the same time, develop fluid flow. Whenever you require flow, it will develop fluid flow. That means it will give discharge some fluid pressure, fluid flow, compensate for the thermal expansion and contraction in the system, control noise, absorb shock, allow the orderly shutdown of the system, and smooth out the pulp compensation and leakage compensation. So what is the, it is a pressurized connection tank connected to circuit which charge during the fluid working doing by fluid using the non-working part of the cycle. The fluid can be combined with the pump flow to increase the system total flow capacity during high demand parts of the cycle. In this way, we can get away with a smaller. So instead of using a larger pump continuously working, use a smaller pump that will be required only to deliver uh, maximum flow in a real time. So these are the designs of the actuators, accumulators. This is a spring-loaded actuator. This is a weight loaded actuator. This is a gas charged accumulator. This is also known as hydropneumatic. In hydropneumatic, there are three types: piston, diaphragm, and bladder. We'll only study the bladder. This is the diaphragm type. We'll only study the bladder. So here, the bladder is supposed to be filled up with a dry nitrogen. This is the construction detail. In the beginning, only there is a, uh, I think this is a diaphragm type accumulator. Let us go to the working of the bladder type accumulator. So in the first slide, here there is a gas connection. So dry nitrogen is filled up. So in this connection, what we are showing here, the line is connected via the port poppet connection here. This is the area for the fluid. This is the bladder. This is the external vessel, and this is the port connection for the fluid, for the gas. Now this condition shows that nitrogen gas is being filled here. So nitrogen gas is filled at some pressure. So this is the P1 is the minimum working pressure based on the requirement of the fluid. You can say it's a P1, the pressure at which minimum working pressure of the fluid. So we fill up the gas here at the same pressure. When there is a completely discharge, when fluid is completely discharged, what will happen? The P1 will expand to the full volume and this pressure will drop to P0. That means pressure P0 is less than P1. So here the pressure is higher because now fluid is entering. This is the normal charging pressure, P1, minimum pressure. This is the discharge pressure. That means fluid is completely gone out. So here, how to do some rough selection. I've just seen, for the sake of simplicity, I've shown here how to select the correct accumulator. So these are the fluid pressures. Sorry, not fluid pressures. These are the pressures for the gas. So the pressure here internally and the pressure of the fluid will be same because fluid pressure and they are in one contact. So pressure P1 is a minimum working pressure in the circuit. P2 is the maximum working pressure in the circuit. Same as the working pressure of the nitrogen P1 and P2, minimum and maximum. This is the pre-charge pressure P0. Pre-charge pressure P0 means it is completely empty. That means the bladder is completely empty, no oil. So at this pressure, you charge the nitrogen. As soon as you fill up hydraulic fluid, it will go to the P1 pressure. That means pressure of nitrogen will be P1, and the pressure of nitrogen when there is a completely oil is filled at higher pressure P2, it will go to higher pressure. That means pressure continuously increases P1 to P2 based on the laws, gas laws, P1 V1 equal to P2 V2 or P0 V0 based on thermal condition. If it is slowly done, it is using the P1 V1 equal to P2 V2 equal to P0 V0 based on isothermal condition. If it is done in a very fast fashion, it will be adiabatic. So use whichever equation is valid in your charging time. If it is a charging is very fast, use adiabatic condition. Charging is very slow or the gas discharge is slow and steady, use the isothermal condition. Using this formula, you calculate delta V0, the pressure volume. Volume V1 and V2 is the volume of the stored volume. This volume is supposed to be volume of the useful volume stored in the, this is, I can say here, this is the volume, internal volume, which is effective volume for the accumulator, which is shown here, effective volume for use. So this effective volume is calculated based on mathematics of uh, thermal calculation, P1 V1 equal to P2 equal, and also use the pressures will be absolute pressure instead of using uh, gauge pressure, because in hydraulics we use a gauge pressure, but in thermal calculation use absolute pressure for calculation. So use absolute pressure here to calculate delta V0. Once you have delta V0, there are charts available in the uh, books or in the catalog. Use that catalog to calculate the, select the volume based on a delta, this V0. This delta V you can use to select the volume V0 required for the black accumulator, and that should be increased to the required volume slightly more than required volume delta V. So select 10 to 15% more than this volume to size the cylinder accumulator. And these are the some circuits used for, I just shown Mukul. I want to ask you, do you have 10 minutes here more? Mukul, hello, 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 Mukul, hello.
Yes, sir, it's okay.
Can I take 10 minutes more? I have some few slides to complete. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah, okay. So I'll just complete this slide and then go to the whatever remaining topic. Here shown accumulator used as an auxiliary power source. So whenever pump is, suppose the circuit is not working, pump is pressurized, pump is working, it will store the liquid into the accumulator via going through the check valve. It will store the liquid here under pressure. Whenever now after that it is stored, what will happen? This liquid is having no return path here because it's blocked by the check valve. You can switch off the pump and this accumulator will continue to supply the fluid, this pressure to the cylinder or the load whenever it is required. It will continue to supply the liquid to the user. So pump need not be on. That is what my point is. Pump will continue to flow the liquid to the accumulator cylinder, and it will discharge it through the this side through the direction control valve. So this is the way it works as an auxiliary power source. This is now second design used as a leakage compensator. Whenever there is a leakage here, suppose now there is some leakage in the this side or user side. This leakage need not be starting the pump here. This leakage is compensated by the pump pressure connected via flow control valve to the user here. This is the point I want to show, leakage compensator. So this is also will be connecting it loaded. One more thing is can will be actually keeping it loaded to the full pressure. Suppose this is a brake applied here. Suppose for some reason you are applying brake. In spite of the pump being off, it will continue to maintain the brake pressure because of the accumulator pressure. So no need to pump being on. So backup for hydraulic power for wind turbine. So this could be used for a wind turbine for a backup. So it will continue to keep position on for brake or some other application. It can be used for brake power for actuation in a vehicle. So now one more application is this could be a thermal application here. I have here shown the pump is discharging into the accumulator. Then accumulator is supplying it to some thermal. That means this is under heat, tremendous heat. This is a die and it's closing some component under heat. That means it's plastic injection molding or some device where there is a high temperature. And it requires some time to maintain. You want to maintain some time here in the mold for heat to get absorbed or heat to be maintained. What will happen in the beginning? This will maintain pressure, because as soon as the temperature increases, what will happen? This dies will try to move outside outside to each other. And what will happen? This will create a back pressure here. This back pressure will create a high pressure here, and it will try to go back. But this being a accumulator here, it will absorb the shock. This is my point of it will take up the thermal expansion of the dies. Okay. This is my accumulator circuit for used in when you don't want to use a frequent on off. So here same point is shown. Frequent on off of the pump is avoided as soon as the uh, pump is discharging into the accumulator. Pump is flowing into the accumulator. This will maintain the flow and it will continue to maintain pressure. But if by for any small thing, it will continue maintain pressure. If it had been not been there, if the accumulator would have not have been there, what would happen? It will pump will be required to do frequent on off based on a set and reset pressure based on the pump pressure set by the pressure switch here. So this frequent on off is avoided by the accumulator. This one more accumulator design application used for clamping circuit. You can go through this in, I think here there is one more application here. This clamp, we have seen the two designs, clamp and bend cylinder. So same logic is used here. Clamp and bend circuit is using some direction control valve. But the point is the pump pressure is now replaced by the accumulator pressure. So it will continue to maintain the clamp pressure in spite of not connected to the pump. This is my point of accumulator. So in the clamp cylinder circuit, clamp and bend application also will be done. Plus you maintain the clamp pressure using the accumulator here. Now one more design feature I want to show. That design feature is the clamps pressure safety. Now accumulator is a very dangerous equipment. If it is kept on for a long time, it can release the pressure. If by mistake it releases the pressure, it can lead to some accident. It is like a stored energy in a small volume. It's a pressure tank. So it can have lot of consequences. To safeguard this, you require to release this pressure through a safety device. So I have shown here as a safety device. Either it can be on or it can be off. So you can always maintain one device, manually actuated direction control valve. Whenever you want to maintain this, do some maintenance work, what you do, push this lever here, make this tank accumulator drain it to the tank. That means when you push it here, what will happen? The complete fluid from the accumulator will go to the tank and this will become a neutral. So for maintenance purpose, you always need to add a direction control valve manually actuated to maintain safety. So accumulator as a shock absorber, I have shown already. If there is a very suddenly the system stop, like in hydraulics, if suddenly some pressure wave is stop, there is a back pressure is like you have heard in some turbines or some fluid flow. Suddenly you close some valve, there is a back pressure is felt in the system. So similarly, if something suddenly stops, then that pressure should not go to the circuit and should not burst the cylinder fittings or some fittings here in the line. So that is absorbed by the shock as a shock from the accumulator. So this completes my accumulators design. I think you have any questions there, you can ask me, or I think now there is one more, some slides are pending, which I'll show you how to use the servo valves. Should I show here one more design, small design, servo valve design? Do you want to continue? Servo valve design, I just taken one small clip for the just for the knowledge. I'm just showing you servo valve as a design, small idea. The servo valve is an advanced feature of the servo valve is nothing but a direction control valve which has an infinitely variable positioning. In a direction control valve, we had a you know that in direction control valve you have an infinitely high position. So instead of finite position, discrete position, if the servo valve has a infinitely variable position to maintain the pressure on one side of some cylinder or retraction. This is shown here in this. So I am showing here in the servo wall how is the actuation. huh? This is the servo wall physically shown here, how it operates actually servo wall. If there is an input here given signal, input will shift the position of the spool. This will disturb the position of this bar, and this will give the output motion here to the this rod. So this is the feedback link. Motion of the input is connected to the this link. This link in turn will give output. That output will shift the position of the cylinder piston, and the system this link itself is responsible to shift the sliding sleeve so as to adjust the correct pressure. So this is the way hydraulic valves work here. I'll share this some slide here with all of you through Professor Nilesh Raikar. I think this is my end of my topic. Any questions do you have, or anybody want to ask any question? They can send it through Professor Nilesh Raikar. I'm completing this lecture now. Uh, any doubt you can ask me through Professor Nilesh Raikar. Uh, that's all. And thank you very much listening to my lecture. Thank you and wish you good luck in your exam. Thank you very much. Mukul, I'm completed now. Anything you want to ask, you can ask. Should I close that? Otherwise, if you don't have any problem, any volunteer there, you can give me feedback.
Yes, sir. You can. No
I can
issues.
close it. No use. No problem. So I'll be sharing the slides and the PPTs with Nilesh Raikar. He'll forward, and also I'll be sharing some worked out examples through him so that you can study that and prepare for your exam. Uh, the point of this numericals were to understand the detailed design mechanism as well as detailed working. So numericals are not that great here difficult. Those you are done first year, second year engineering, you know mechanics, strength of material. So all those will be similar numericals. Okay, thank you and wish you good luck, all my students. Thank you very much. I'll
Thank you,
close.
sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.